Hello everyone, in this video I am going to be showing how I made this video, which I just rendered out in Blender, and it's actually pretty simple. Now I'm assuming you have a basic knowledge of Blender, and if you don't, then you can just go look up videos. There's a whole bunch of different videos on how to make something like this. So first thing, let me just minimize that. So just open up your normal Blender scene, and I have changed the cycles render. You could probably do this in the Blender render too, but it's not as detailed, although it is a lot faster. So I just have normal cube here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a plane, and I'm going to scale that up so it's really big. That's probably good enough. And then I'm going to move this cube up on the z-axis, and I'm going to flatten it a bit and also stretch it out and make it taller. Let's make it even taller. Okay, so let's try to make it flush with that. Okay, that's probably close enough. And let's just move it back a bit. Okay, so now we have our wall, and what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go into edit mode, select everything, and subdivide it. Actually, we don't want to subdivide the sides, because that just makes a lot of unneeded stuff. So actually just select the front and back faces, like that, and just subdivide those. So click on subdivide, and then 5 cuts is probably enough. You don't really need that many. And now that you've done that, you can tab back out of edit mode, and actually move this bottom piece to layer 2 along with the camera. Okay. And now what you're going to want to do is enable a add-on called cell fracture. So the way to do this, it's pretty simple. You just go to user preferences, and then go to all, search for cell fracture, and this will probably not be checked for you for right now. So just check it, and then close out of that, and then on your object tools over here, scroll down to cell fracture and click it, and it gives you all these options. You don't really need to mess with them or really understand what they do. They're kind of complicated, but you just click OK, and it'll automatically start breaking up the cube or whatever you're trying to break. And it sometimes lags a little bit. Okay, but now it's done, and this is the same, no changes there. But if you go to layer 2, it has all these individual pieces that it just broke up. I don't know what I did there. Okay, so it has all these little pieces of the wall, and I realized this isn't as broken up as mine, or like, this is pretty similar. So I'm just actually going to try to do this a bit better. I'm just going to select all of these, and then deselect the bottom, and just delete them. I'm going to try to do this a bit better. So let's go back to layer 1, and go back into edit mode, and let's just subdivide the entire thing one more time. Okay. And let's try that cell fracture again. Just click OK. Okay, and you can see this time the pieces are a lot more angular and look a lot more like they've actually been broken up. Okay. So now if we go back to layer 2, you see we have all these little pieces. And what we're going to want to do is select all of them and go to materials over here, and they're on the default material right now, so click use nodes and change the color to something. I used blue, so I'll just make these blue, and then go solid view. Okay, so if we switch to material view, you can see that that's blue. Go back to solid. And the other thing that we need to do with all of these is we need to enable physics on them. So go over, stretch this out a little bit, go over to the physics tab and click rigid body and just leave all that as is and enable deactivation. Okay, so now if you press P, which starts the physics engine, you can see all the pieces just fall. But that's not how we want it to go. We want them to break when the ball hits them. But we haven't made the ball yet, so I'll get into that a bit later. And let's just assign a material to this plane, call it floor. Let's change the material on here to wall. Okay, so let's change the floor material, I don't know, something brown. It doesn't really matter. We're not even going to use it for anything, but just so it looks nice. And let's add the ball. So add a sphere. You only need like maybe 8 and 8. And you can enable smooth on that. And then you're just going to need to position it. Okay. And let's send it back a little bit. And we might as well move it up a little bit too. Okay, and we're just going to make the ball launch like that at the wall. And let's give the ball a material, make it red, and call it ball. Okay. Let's enable rigid body on the floor as well, but make it a passive. And enable rigid body on the sphere as well. And enable deactivation. Okay. Okay. Now what we need to do is we need to launch the sphere at the wall. So to do that, just go down here, stretch this up, and change this to node editor. No, not node editor, sorry. Logic editor. And we're going to add a always sensor, and we're going to make it always have motion. Okay, sometimes this is weird. Switch to the Blender game engine and then try to add the motion. I don't know why it's not allowing me to move it however I want. Oh, okay. So what you actually need to do is you need to go to the Blender game engine instead of the Blender render. So I mean the cycles render. So in the cycles render you can get rid of that rigid body, but in the Blender game engine you need to enable rigid body, and then you can just go back to cycles render, and now you have all of these different options down here for the motion. So let's just give it some linear velocity on the y. Give it a 10 on the y and a 5 on the z, and link these two up. And if we press P, start the physics, it's going the wrong way. Let's make this -5 P. You can see it's going through there, and it actually makes those fall. But we need to make it so that these don't fall until this hits it. So to do that, we just select one of them and go to Add Sensor, Always, and press Tap, and change that to Edit Object. Change that to Dynamics and Suspend Dynamics, and link those, and then add a sensor for touch, and when it touches anything with the ball material, then we want to enable the dynamics. So edit object, link these, change to dynamics, and restore dynamics. But the other thing is, if we just leave it like this, then the pieces will stay there if they haven't been hit by the ball. So we also want them to move if they've been hit by another piece of the wall. So the way we're going to do that is add another touch sensor and change the material on there to wall and link this up to there. So if either one of these, actually no, don't link it to there. Link it to here. There we go. Wish I could get rid of that wire. You know what, let's just re-add this. Add sensor, touch, wall material, and link it to that. Okay. Now, that's only on this object though, so we need to apply it to the rest of the wall objects. So let's just select all of them. And I'm going to press G. Okay, see I missed one there. So gotta get that one too. Okay, now I have all of them. And what we're going to do is just press space and apply, no, copy logic bricks to selected. So what this is going to do is it's going to copy the logic bricks from the first piece we have selected, which is what we added all this to, and it's going to put it on everything else we have selected. So if we click that, you can see this immensely filled up with all of those. And that looks bad, so I'm just going to go back to timeline view here and shrink that back down. Now if we press P, they're all suspended until the ball hits it, and then they all start to fall. And then what I did is I put 3 balls here to make it go a bit faster. So right click, and then you can do Shift D and snap that on the X, and Shift D and snap that on the X, and now you'll have 3 balls flying at the wall, and all of them cause it to break. Now there's only one thing left to do, which is to make it actually be rendered out when we do it, or when we try to go to render the animation. So the way you do that is you go to Blender Game, and you put the animation frame rate at 24, change the refresh rate to 24, and go to World and change FPS to 24. And that way it'll be at the same frame rate as it tries to render out. And then all you do is go to Game, Record Animation, and go to 0, press P, and it is recording that animation to the timeline. Escape. Now if we try to go along the timeline, you can see it has, oh, that's not good, that piece didn't fall. sure it has the right logic on it. Yeah, it should. Did it fall if we use P? Go back to timeline. If we press P, yeah, all of them fall, so I don't know why that piece was still floating there. Oh, I know why. Okay, go here and get rid of that rigid body. So we want it actually, no, leave it on rigid body. Go to cycles render, get rid of that rigid body. Sorry about that. I don't know where, okay, there's the piece. Okay, now it should work fine. Okay, and we actually want to render further than that, so let's just go back to Blender Game and record animation, make sure that's checked, and press P again, and give it some time to let everything settle down. Okay, that should be good. Then escape cancel, and now you can see it has far past the 250 rendered, so you can render this out however long you want. Now the only thing left to do is the scene needs a light source. So go back to cycles, Shift A, mesh plane, and stretch it out on the x-axis, rotate it a little bit. Let's view it from the side. Rotate it a little bit, then move it up here. Go to materials, add a new, call it light, change it to an emission, and then to see what it's doing, let's go to the rendered view and just turn up the strength to maybe 20. Yeah, that looks good. Maybe we could even move the light back a little bit. No, wrong direction. Solid. Move it back on the Y a little bit and move it up. Check that out in rendered view. Okay, yeah, that should be fine. Okay, go back to solid view. And now just position the camera. So right click on the camera, then just press G to move it wherever you want to. And then you can press F or Shift F, gives you a bit more control over it. And I think I'm just going to have it positioned here so you can see the whole wall crumble down like that. And now all that's left to do is render out the animation. So the presets I used, I put it on 1280 by 720 full aspect ratio. Sampling, I did 100, but you can do more if you have a better computer, which my computer isn't very good. It took quite a while to do that. And then on light paths, you can put the minimum down to 0, max to 4, and I put the clamp on 4, and all of these are just to reduce the time it'll take to render. And then you can change the tile size if you'd like, and that's pretty much all it is. So I'll render this out much smaller at like 5 render animation. You can see like even this takes a while for my computer, but you can see it has the whole animation on there, and then when it hits it'll start to break. And you can see the wall starting to break there. And then once you've rendered it all out, all you have to do is combine it in a video. And the way I made it go back is I just put the frames backwards and then I put them forwards. It's pretty simple and not too hard if you think about it. Thanks for watching. If you like the video, like it. If you want to see more Blender tutorials from me, then give me some ideas. Leave a comment on my channel. I'm not a very good 3D designer, so don't expect anything too great from me on here. And if you want to, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching.